Israeli. Yeah, and she actually was part of the Israeli Defense Forces. So she was in the army, and are we live?
Yeah. Hey y'all. No one's on yet.
Yeah. So
can I ask you that?
Yeah.
I hear it. Yeah.
Go for it. Let's see if we get our 35 back.
You're what? Oh yeah. Hey y'all. Welcome back. Hello, Danny. So welcome everyone. Hey Aurelie. If this is your first time tuning in, this is Woke Wednesdays. We do this every single Wednesday, different topic. Last week was, what was last week? Oh, last week we talked about net neutrality and how it affects everyone, and it will affect everyone, small businesses and all that stuff. So a great episode last week. Next week we're talking about, we have an amazing transgender woman on the show, talking about a lot of things. But this is the last episode of the year, and I'm so fortunate to have an amazing guest on the show. She's been dropping knowledge on us for like the past hour.
Thanks, Jers.
So, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell the people who you are.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sujha Sawafda, Jersen's childhood friend. And I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Oxford, working on Arabic literature, and a lecturer at UNC Greensboro in Arabic.
Yeah, she's super smart. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm humbled
It's an act.
to be in her presence tonight. So we've been talking about the challenges that face the Arab American community, and we've also right in the last segment we were kind of getting into Palestine and Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked you a question right before we started. Wonder Woman. If anyone saw the movie Wonder Woman, I loved the movie, but not questioning some things. Wonder Woman to me was a great movie, but I recently found out that she identifies as an Israeli person.
Yeah.
So my question to you was, if someone identifies as Israeli, does that mean that they're in support of Israel being the nation and kicking out or not even granting land to Palestinian people?
I don't think that means that they're against granting land to Palestinian people, because there are different political views within Israel. We can't deny that Israel is a state at this point. But what we can hold them accountable for is say that this was a very violent way to create a state, and the subjugation of the indigenous population, which are the Palestinians, is uncalled for and unjust. But someone like Gal Gadot is someone who is...
Is that her name?
Yeah. Wonder Woman.
She
is someone who is currently being admired, let's say, in the media for her feminist values and the portrayal of Wonder Woman, who, for a lot of us women, it's exciting because it's the first superhero where we come out of a movie and we feel an adrenaline rush. But Gal Gadot is also someone who served in the Israeli Defense Forces, so she participated in the subjugation of the Palestinians. I've actually seen her Instagram. I've seen that she's in support of the occupation, which is Israel's illegal occupation of the Palestinian territories. So there's a lot, going on. But I think the term Israeli refers to anyone who is an Israeli citizen. That includes Palestinian citizens of Israel. So the Palestinians who never left their homes in 1948 are third-class citizens in Israel today, and they are Palestinian, but they're Palestinian citizens of Israel. So that we can't really group any one person as, I only support Israel, I only support Palestine. There are so many Israelis that actually want a two-state solution because it's the only fair and just way to solve this conflict today. We're talking about the fourth generation now coming in, post the establishment of Israel.
Wow.
So there's no easy way to answer your question.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
No, I'm glad you said it the way you did. Yeah, because it's not dichotomous. It's not like an either or type of thing.
And
right?
And we're like I have Israeli friends that say I refuse to serve in the IDF. I don't support the cause, as in I don't support an exclusively Jewish state. So I mean, and then we can just be friends based on our likes and dislikes, rather than our political or national affiliations.
So recently there was legislation that was passed in the United States regarding Palestine. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Right. So the Trump administration recently declared that it has recognized Jerusalem as the eternal and undivided capital of Israel, whereas under the UN peace kind of resolutions, Jerusalem was supposed to be divided into East and West. East being the Arab Palestinian capital, and West being the Israeli Jewish capital. And for the few decades, the 7 decades that this conflict has been, prominent on the international scene, no one country has recognized Jerusalem as the exclusive capital of Israel except for the United States. And the problem with Trump's decision is that it's unilateral, so it completely ignores... It's basically one man's decision to undo decades of policy on Jerusalem, whereas the majority of the world sees that it should be like a Vatican-like international zone for everyone to go to. But declaring it the capital of Israel means that Israel can dictate who goes in and who doesn't. So, I mean, just broadly speaking, that's one of the main issues with that, which is why so many people were angered.
Yeah. So did everyone get that? Do you have any questions about that? Because I think that's important. This was huge. This was when I saw that, I was like, oh my god.
So the United States has agreed to move its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which is obviously like a huge problem. Yeah.
It's I don't even know how to respond to that.
Yeah. Lulu's saying
Resolution 184 forever.
181.
181. What does that mean?
So Resolution 181 is one of the main UN resolutions that calls for the fair division of Jerusalem as a capital. But among that, it's the one that says the 1967 territories of West Bank and Gaza Strip should be the Palestinian state, and everything else in between should be Israel.
Here's a question: would that the 1967 resolution displace people? What would that do to the people currently living on that border or on those lines?
Are you talking about, like, for example, Israelis living on those borders, or?
Yeah.
So it wouldn't displace the current inhabitants of Palestine. The question is then, how do we allow the refugees that were expelled in 48 and 67 to return to Palestine? So people who are literally languishing in camps in Lebanon, in Syria, under siege with the current situation in Syria, Jordan, Egypt, and anyone who was expelled or their family was expelled. There are Israeli settlers that live in illegal settlements that are against international law. So those settlements shouldn't even be there. And Israel has made it clear that they were not willing to give up those settlements. But the fair and just solution would be the transfer of that population to Israel proper, then allowing maybe refugees to come back into those houses that have already been built. So they're basically little colonies.
So excuse my ignorance, but what land then do Palestinian people actually have right now?
That's the problem.
There is nothing.
Palestinians are living under either in exile, so in other countries without citizenship.
You said over 50%, right?
Over 50%, or languishing under military occupation. So Israel is militarily occupying the Palestinian territories, holding places like the Gaza Strip under siege. No one goes in, no one goes out, except for maybe a medical emergency if you're lucky.
Berlin Wall type of
times
deal.
10, 15. The apartheid wall in Bethlehem right now is so much bigger and much more damaging than the Berlin Wall was. But yeah, so they don't actually have any autonomous control, really. There are parts of the West Bank that are deemed areas A, B, and C, but really the Palestinian Authority is a puppet to whatever Israel wants at the end of the day, because it's a military occupation.
Kayla's saying this is all new to me. I'm going to have to look all this up. Getting woke. You're dropping knowledge right here. So, now, do you go back to Palestine as an American?
Yeah.
Can you go back to Palestine right now?
As an American, I could go to either Israel or Palestine, so either side of the line, I guess. But I actually, because my parents were born there, and their families, my grandparents, my cousins, my aunts and uncles, my nuclear family is the only American part of my family. I have some in Canada, but so that's a very exceptional circumstance. But because they were born there and they go back regularly, I actually have Palestinian residency. So I have this triple citizenship situation going on. So I go back as a Palestinian, which means I'm not allowed to go to Jerusalem. I get the full, treatment. So yeah, I do go back, but I go back.
So where exactly do you go to? If you don't mind me asking.
So I go to a place called Tubas. It's a village in the Jordan Valley, so just next to the Jordan River, very close to Jordan actually. It's in the northeast of the West Bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is so we hear. I think we get bits and pieces on the news, this Israel just became this, or Jerusalem just became, but we don't know the history and the context behind all of this.
Right.
So you're doing a phenomenal job at breaking down a very.
Well, the problem is if you speak up about Palestine in the United States, you get completely. Like, it's like Stephen Salaita is a Jordanian American academic who was tweeting during the Israeli invasion of Gaza. His name is Stephen Salaita. He works on indigeneity, and he kind of writes about the parallels between the Native American plight and the Palestinian plight, but just in indigenous plights. Very amazing scholar.
I would love to, yeah.
Yeah.
Could you send us some of his work?
Sure,
I usually like post articles and stuff on Woke Wednesdays.
Yeah.
So,
he was doing something as simple as tweeting about his outrage towards the 2014 siege of Gaza. Israel was bombing Gaza nonstop. And he lost his tenure at the University of Chicago, University of Illinois.
Lost his tenure?
Yeah, he lost his tenure. It was revoked.
Wow.
Was completely marginalized by the American Academy. So even if you want to speak about Palestine and speak truth to power, you're risking your entire career.
Even in the academy, which is supposed to be, especially with tenure, academic freedom.
Someone like Noam Chomsky can talk about it because he's Noam Chomsky, and he's reached kind of like this untouchable caliber of like intellectual, like public intellectual status. Edward Said, who wrote Orientalism, Columbia University had to hire bodyguards and bulletproof his home.
He got death threats, everything. Yeah.
Simply because he's a Palestinian American who chose to speak up. So, I mean, it is definitely something that the mainstream media here does not want you to know about. And
that was the first Palestinian, or he's been the only Palestinian scholarship that I've actually...
Among the first, yeah.
No, that I've actually read.
Oh, that you've read.
Yeah, that I've read. Yeah. Because, again, like, we're not introduced to this type of literature in the academy. Like, we're just not. It's Lulu's asking, please share some reputable news sites that cover Palestine. Oh, Christine Yam is on.
Hello.
Some reputable news sites.
Yeah. So, Middle East Monitor is a great one.
Which one?
Middle East Monitor, Memo. It's a London-based agency that actually translates news from the Arab world, from Arabic into English for an English-speaking readership. Al Jazeera on Palestine is pretty...
I've heard of that one.
It's pretty good, Al Jazeera English. The Young Turks, more recently, which is a really just kind of an alternative news site in the U.S. But I wouldn't trust like CNN or any mainstream American site for that.
You don't have to convince us of that. I was wondering if you could please maybe like write this out and I'll post it on Woke Wednesdays. I would love to just to kind of, because again, this is not like, a lot of folks are saying that this is all new, like, to us. Like, this is, we live in a world where if something isn't directly affecting us, right, and unfortunately we're so busy in this type of world that we live in. Yeah, I'm too worried about what affects me personally. You know?
And that's, I think, the main problem. Yeah, is that we're just trying to make it day to day, but
absolutely. It's just so complicated. Mara saying context. It's hard as fuck to lose tenure. Like, extremely hard. Yeah, it's really hard. Usually, like, one of the it's easier to lose tenure from misappropriation of funds as a professor than it is to sexually harass someone as a professor with tenure. Like, facts. Like, that's like a real thing. So it's more acceptable for a professor to sexually harass a student, right, and them not lose their job, than it would be if they misappropriated funds. So now we have professors speaking up about an injustice, about dehumanization of people, and losing tenure. Wow. That says a lot.
Which is why for most intellectuals and professors, you kind of have to wait anyway till you get tenure before you can write about Palestine, speak about Palestine. But so this is one of the first instances. Norman Finkelstein, a Jewish American scholar, was also his tenure was revoked for speaking up against Palestine.
Wow.
Speaking up for Palestine, not against, but against the Israeli occupation of Palestine. So it's definitely one of those subjects that you kind of have to tread lightly, unfortunately, and pick your battles very carefully until you achieve a certain level.
It's interesting. One of my classmates, I'm in a class right now. We're writing a book, and one of my classmates is writing a piece on how oftentimes we look at faculty to be the intellectual, right? And with the intellectual comes certain responsibilities, such as speaking up against injustices. And my classmate is arguing is that we need to view students more as your public intellectuals, your activists. Historically, there have been, right? But we need to see more of this. So, like, in other words, like, why wait till someone gets a faculty position, right? As students, we can also address this protest, and we've seen it at various universities. But there could always be more of that, right?
Yeah, an intellectual is anyone who produces knowledge.
Absolutely.
For society. So it doesn't have to be a professor. But I would say that if you're going to take on that role, if that's something that you want, you have to make sure you know what you're talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
So learn the rules before you break them. And also, break them by all means. But learn the rules before you break them. And make sure that you are as well read as possible and as educated. And that includes just traveling if you can. And just, going
if you have the means. Yeah.
Just, embark on an educational journey, whatever that journey may look like.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to be an intellectual, you have a responsibility socially.
Yeah.
To be someone who's informed.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. And I think with these type of issues that people are just don't know much about, I think that's part of the cool thing about Woke Wednesdays is that we have access to dope up and coming scholars and doing their thing, and they can probably reach out to you. That's okay. They have questions about stuff. I have a comment here. Kayla saying, "I'm gonna have another squirrel moment. I was thinking about the programs, how it's been happening for ages, and maybe there is some guilt there, like you were saying. I'm not sure if I did. Did you get that?
Can we reread it? Sorry. Thinking about the program. What programs are we talking about? Like educational programs, or?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, we're definitely gonna come at you with articles and books. They're saying, Kayla's saying, drop articles and books, please.
Gotcha. Say less.
I've posted Orientalism before. The Edward Said.
Yeah.
His understanding is, I think he's really dope in the way he uses Foucault. And I'm like becoming more of a Foucault person.
Foucault's amazing.
So it's just really interesting because the way he's arguing is pretty dope. So I'll post the book again.
But it is definitely a more academic approach.
Very academic.
I would say also if you just want to kind of be more, don't underestimate the power of a novel or poetry if you're trying to, just really get the
facts.
human perspective.
Facts. Yeah. So what do you recommend?
It depends on what the issue is. There's so many amazing novels from the Arab world and also from Arab Americans or British Arabs or anyone. But for Palestine in particular, I recommend the poetry of Mahmoud Darwish, who's the poet laureate of Palestine.
You guys spell it out for us.
Mahmoud and then Darwish Darwish.
Oh.
Yeah.
Muhammad Darwish.
Mahmoud.
Yeah, say the Southern way. The Southern way.
But there's so many different. We can obviously give a list, but
we'll give a list.
We'll give a list.
Promise.
I think that would just
be cool. Yeah, for sure. So it's the Words for the Jewish Exile Over the Years programs. I'm not sure. You know what you're talking about?
The Jews were definitely expelled from historic Palestine. We're not denying that, but it's the fact that property...
No, she's looking for the word.
I don't know the word, but I think she's referring to the exodus of the Jews from historic Palestine. Okay. And we're talking about property rights that date back like 3,000 years. So it's I'm not denying that that's a thing. And no one ever said, like, it's not the homeland of the Jews, but it's also the homeland of the Palestinians. So either, like, we live together or we're not going to get anywhere. You know what I mean? So absolutely. It's just unfortunate.
Is this the correct spelling she's asking?
You need a I after the W.
Oh, okay. Kayla's doing her own.
All right, Kayla, we got you, girl. Thanks for the knowledge.
Yeah. All right, cool. So we're about to end. We're about to wrap up. We're meeting up with some high school friends tonight. So if you, there's a lot was said tonight. We addressed some, just a small fraction of the challenges that Arab Americans face in the United States, especially under this current presidential administration. If we looked at a lot, we went abroad, we came back, domestic. If you had some parting words, or if anyone has any questions before we end, please feel free to ask them now. But if you have some parting words, what is something that you would maybe like for people to know? And I would love if you could kind of say the poem that your dad told me
earlier.
Yeah, earlier. I would love that.
I guess my parting words would just be if anyone is being bullied for their ethnic origin, and loosely defined, just know that there's a world outside of high school, and And it can be harder as an adult, but you will find the tools to navigate your space, and it's going to be okay. And there is empowerment in struggle. I think it gives you a sense of fulfillment that, just going through that. The poem Jerson is referring to is by a Tunisian poet named Abul Qasim al-Shabi, who wrote during Tunisia's fight for independence from France in the 60s, wrote a poem called The Will of Life, which was later revived during the Arab Spring in 2011. And it says, إذا الشعب يوم أراد الحياة فلا بد أن يستجيب القدر, which is, if the people one day sought to live or decide to live or want to live, then fate has no choice but to comply.
Can you say that again?
If the people, okay, so if the people have the will of life, basically, one day wake up with the will of life, then fate has no choice but to comply. So rise up, fight for yourself, and
I dig that.
Stay woke.
Yeah, stay woke for sure. Please, I need that quote in my life.
I got you.
That's a post. And Christina's saying yes. Other kids saying thank you so much, Lulu.
Thanks, everyone.
Y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. I know it's around the holidays. I know it's the end of the year. I know people got stuff to do. Yeah. I know you got stuff to do. I know you're busy.
We got stuff to do.
But thank you so much for tuning in. Woke Wednesdays, we do this every single Wednesday.
Thanks for having me, Jerson.
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you for thank you for being on the show. So we'll see y'all next week. And we have a lot of cool things. Oh yeah, Mara's saying parallels to Invictus. There's a poem. You know Invictus?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a poem that we say. It's a fraternal poem that we also kind of say. I guess I could post that too. I don't think
why
that
not?
covers
Intersectionality,
me.
right?
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, y'all, for tuning in tonight. We'll see y'all next week. Hopefully, have fun tonight, Christina's saying. Awesome. Take care, y'all.